Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of these. I just wanted to chat about one of my favorite little things in Bash and Z Shell and Fish, and I think really most shells do this, and that is keeping commands secret, at least secret, from the history. So you might know about history. If I just type history there, boom, it just prints out all of the commands, the entire history from where I've been, starting out with the most recent one. This also works with Control R, where I can search back to a command. This is the reverse search using Control R. So I could type like woof woof, and there's a bunch of stuff in the history that contain that. This one is the most recent one where I just am echoing woof out to the console. So yeah, there's also, if we look at the .z shell history, that also is a record, a continuous record of your commands and everything that Z shell knows about. Bash is very similar with the bash history. It has a history command. You can do reverse lookup with it. A lot of this is very, very similar. But let's say that I have something. Let's say, it's a password on the command line that I need to pass, which generally is not a great practice, but you do see this from time to time. So let's just say that I need to echo my super secret password. If then, say this was part of that command, if then somebody was on this machine or also SSH on this machine, or I left my desk or later, they would very easily be able to do the search back, go into the Z shell history, or just use the history command to look for that password, to look for maybe an instance where I used a password within a command. Maybe one example is you have some CLI, that takes a password command, and this could be my secret password. Somebody could then, obviously there's no some CLI in there, but somebody could then come back and look for password and see what that is. So a lot of this just really falls into the camp of like DevOpsX and really just keeping your own personal security and the things that you're mindful of being on your machine sort of nice and tidy. Thankfully, there's a really, really easy way to keep stuff out of the history. You just do one space ahead of the command. So one space, and then we can do like echo. Let's do something like woof, 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 woof. Something very unique. Or let's do, I don't know, eggplant. I don't think I've ever typed eggplant in here, so it shouldn't be in the existing history back there. But that one space, it still executed the command as you would expect, but that one space keeps it out of the history. So we can check that by just doing history. And we could see a bunch of the stuff we did here before, but not that latest command. We can also do the reverse search. Eggplant, yeah, nothing inside of there, just something I did previously, probably months ago. So that is really probably on the command line at most times the best way to keep things out of the history. So having to put a leading space in front of every command you run in longer sessions is kind of a pain in the neck. So thankfully there are ways to just turn off history and then turn it back on in a whim. So the way I'm going to do that here is I'm actually going to start a new Z shell session, and now I'm in a nested Z shell here, and then I'm going to unset hist file. And hist file denotes which history file typically Z shell would dump the history into. If I echo hist file, that should now be empty. And then I can do some secret stuff like, I don't know, bark, bark, bark. And then that will not exist within the history file. Now, if I look back search, there it is. That is the command that we just ran, right? But this history only exists within this local memory of this shell. So what I'm going to do here is exit, and that brings me out into my outer shell. So we should now have echo hist file. We should have a history file now because this outer shell has the hist file set. And if I do a look back now, there's no bark, 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 because all of these commands from here until we exited were existing within a nested shell that had the history file unset, but that local history still existed within memory within that individual shell. So it can be a little confusing, like what levels of history end up getting the commands and the history of all this stuff, right, that you have. But the nice thing to know about the unset hist file method is that that local shell will just not get stuff to the history file, and then when you exit it, you should be set. Those secret commands will not exist anymore. But maybe the biggest caveat to that is, you got to be in a separate shell. So this next method is very similar to unsetting the history file, but it actually uses fc to create a private session. And just like with unsetting the history file, we'll still get in-memory history that will persist until we exit out. So let's see that in practice. So we're going to do Z shell to get a nested shell within our shell. So this one is the new command line here. And we're going to run fc-p. And normally when you've seen fc before, it stands for fix command. You'll see it like, spin up your default editor, Vim maybe or something, and then give you the opportunity to fix up or touch up a bunch of your previous commands. This -p method actually instructs fc to enter you into a private session. So fc-p, that runs successfully, and then we can do a bunch of stuff. We can do all of our private stuff. So echo, let's do something else, potato. Sure, close enough. That will persist within this local session, but as soon as I exit, so exit back into our outer shell, that will be gone. So potato, and it's not there. So this creates that new shell up to the exit, and fc-p gives us the private session, which is really nice. I like this one quite a bit since unsetting the environment variable for history can be kind of annoying, kind of a pain in the butt. Two additional things I think to be aware of is the hist control. So if I echo hist control, I think that's it. Hist control is a special environment variable that you can set, or that you could set in your environments, that denotes how to ignore specific things. You can actually use hist control to ignore, ignoring the space method of keeping stuff out of the history. So if I export hist control, and if I set that to ignore dupes, now it will ignore duplicates within the history. I could do something similar where I ignore, space. And now this method of doing space, echo something, that will then show up in the history. We can actually see that work. Something, there it is, even though we have that space in front of our command. And then there's a bunch of other stuff where we could do ignore, I think it's ignore both. And ignore both will ignore duplicates, but also ignore that space method. So this is important to be reminded of because hist control can be set and maybe be not exactly what you intended if you want to use the space method in front of the command to keep stuff out of the history as a one-off. Otherwise, you'll either need to use the fc-p or the unset hist file command example that we used there. Private stuff in the shell. It's possible. It's great. Private sessions, all that stuff. If you found this useful, like, comment, subscribe, do all this stuff. And I will catch you next time on another one of these. Thanks, everybody. Peace.